1. Water comes first.
I remember the moment when I realized that water in the desert is not just a liquid, it is life itself in every drop. My story began with a catastrophic mistake. I took only 3 liters with me, thinking that it would be enough for a day trip. I was so wrong. The sun had just begun to rise over the dunes, and I had already drunk half of my bottle. The thirst was unbearable. My mouth was dry, and my tongue felt like sandpaper. The first thing I realized was that you can't drink in big gulps. Every time I took a big sip, I wanted more and more. My body was screaming, quote, 0, but the mind whispered, quote, 1. I learned to take tiny sips, literally wetting my lips and tongue. 2 or 3 small sips every 20 minutes. It became a ritual. I marked the time by the position of the sun, by the shadow of my body. At first, it seemed that it was useless, such microscopic portions, but after a few hours, I realized the wisdom of this method. My body stopped demanding water continuously. It adapted to small but regular supplies. One day, I found an old plastic bottle in the bed of a dried-up river. Don't think it was pure water. No, it was warm, with sandy sediment at the bottom, but I didn't pour it out. Instead, I carefully poured it into my main bottle, leaving a residue. This water has become my emergency reserve. I divided all the liquid into 3 parts, one for regular drinking, the second for emergencies, and the third for wetting clothes and skin. I learned the most valuable life hack from a Bedouin I met on the 3rd day. He showed me how to add a pinch of salt to the water. "You're sweating, you're losing salt," he explained. "Plain water does not replenish them. But be careful, too much salt will increase thirst." I started adding just a few crystals per liter. The effect was amazing. The weakness in the muscles disappeared. The dizziness stopped. But the hardest lesson was ahead of me. On the 5th day, I discovered that one of my bottles was leaking. A grain of sand got into the carving, and the precious liquid slowly oozed out. From that day on, I always distribute the water in several containers, even if it's just plastic bags tied in a knot. Never store all the water in one place. Remember, your urine is the best indicator. If it is dark yellow and has a pungent odor, you are already dehydrated. Light, almost transparent urine is a sign that you are drinking enough. I've learned to read my body by these signs. And finally, never drink in one gulp. Even if you really want to. Your body will not have time to absorb a large amount of fluid. Most of it will simply pass through the kidneys. Small sips, regularity, and adding electrolytes are the secret to keeping water in the body. 2. The right clothes are your protection. When I first went to the desert, I thought that the fewer clothes the better. What a stupid mistake. I quickly realized that my exposed skin was just a hot canvas for the scorching sun. I remember wearing shorts and a tank top on the first day. By evening, my legs were red as boiled crayfish, and my shoulders were covered with blisters. The pain was unbearable. At night, when the temperature dropped to +5 degrees, I was shivering from the cold in my light clothes. The next day, I took out everything I had from my backpack, long pants, a long-sleeve shirt, and even pulled socks over my hands like makeshift gloves. And you know what? I became easier. Yes, it was hot, but it was a different kind of heat, not scalding, but rather dense, like in a sauna. I've learned how to dress in layers. The first layer is a lightweight cotton t-shirt that absorbs sweat. The second is a loose shirt made of thick fabric. There is a light windbreaker on top, which creates an air layer. When the sun was at its zenith, I buttoned myself up and turned up my collar. When it started to blow, she unbuttoned it, allowing the wind to cool her body. But the real salvation was my makeshift turban. I took a light scarf measuring 1 meter by 1 meter, soaked it in water, yes, I spent a precious 100 milliliters, and wrapped it around my head. She wore a cap with a visor over it. This turban did several things. It protected the head from direct rays, retained moisture, and the wet cloth cooled the scalp through evaporation. The most amazing discovery awaited me when I experimented with the color of clothes. I had a black t-shirt and a white one. I thought it would be cooler in Balea, but after a day of testing, I discovered a strange thing. Under the black t-shirt, the skin was less red, although the fabric itself was heating up more. It turned out that dark fabrics block UV better. Now I have a rule. Light-colored clothes for daytime trips when it is important to reflect the sun's rays. Dark, for long stops in the shade when you need protection from UV radiation. And always, maximum body coverage. Shoes are a separate story. My light sneakers quickly filled up with sand. Every step became torture. The sand chafed the skin, caused blisters. I took ordinary socks, cut off their heels and toes, and got these pipes. She put them on over her socks, then wrapped bandages around her shins. It turned out to be improvised gaiters. The sand stopped getting inside. In the evening, when the temperature dropped, I took a warm sweatshirt out of my backpack. Yes, it can be cold in the desert at night. The very first night taught me this lesson. Now I always have a light sweater and hat with me. They don't weigh much, but they keep me from hypothermia. Remember, your clothes in the desert are your second skin. It should protect, not decorate. Loose-fit, natural fabrics, layering. That's the key to survival. 3. Walk at night, rest during the day. If someone had told me that I would prefer to move in complete darkness, among unknown dangers, I would have laughed. But the desert has taught me that the heat of the day is much scarier than any nocturnal creature. The first day I tried to walk under the scorching sun. 2 hours later I started feeling dizzy, and 3 hours later I started feeling sick. The air temperature reached 45 degrees. The sand underfoot was all 70 degrees. Every step was an incredible effort. I drank almost all the water that I planned to last for a day. In the evening, when the sun disappeared behind the dunes, the temperature dropped to a comfortable 30 degrees. I felt a surge of strength. And she went. She walked slowly, carefully, lighting the way with a flashlight. And in 3 hours of the night, it took more than in the whole previous day. I've developed my own rhythm. An hour before sunset, I start preparing for the transition. I put on warm clothes. The nights can be cold. Check the flashlight, mark the landmarks by the stars. I walk slowly at first, letting my eyes adjust to the darkness. After half an hour, I turn on the flashlight, at minimum brightness, so as not to attract the attention of animals. The most difficult thing is to navigate at night. The stars become your friends. I learned how to find the North Star and navigate by the moon. But the main thing is that I always left marks. Every 100 steps, she put down a small stone, a stick, or something noticeable. In the morning, if I had to go back, I followed my marks. I rested during the day. I found a shadow. Sometimes it was a big stone. Sometimes it was a sparse shrub. One day, I dug a small hole in the sand, about half a meter deep. It was cooler at the bottom. I pulled a raincoat over the pit, creating an improvised awning. The temperature in this shelter was 10 to 15 degrees lower than outside, but night crossings require special care. Snakes, scorpions, and spiders are all active at night. I always carefully checked the place where I was going to sit or lie down. I took a stick and felt the sand around. I never took off my shoes, even when I was resting. Another life hack. If you need to move around during the day, do it early in the morning or late at night, and always with regular stops. I set a rule for myself: 50 minutes of travel, 10 minutes of rest in the shade. During the rest, she did not sit but lay down, lifting her legs above her head. It improved blood circulation. Moonlit nights are the best for crossings. When the full moon illuminates the sands, visibility is almost like daytime, but without the heat. I specifically planned long walks for such nights. I remember one moonlit night especially vividly. I walked along the silver sands, and there was almost a sacred silence around me. Only the rustle of sand underfoot and the occasional sounds of nocturnal animals. At that moment, I realized that the desert at night is not a hostile place. She's just different. and if you respect her rules, she'll let you through. 4. Create a shelter from improvised means. My first hiding place was a pathetic sight: 2 twigs stuck in the sand and a t-shirt draped over them. It gave almost no shade, and it was just as hot under it as outside. But every day I studied, and my shelters became more perfect. The most important lesson is that you need to prepare a shelter in the evening or at night. If you build it during the day, hot air will remain inside, and it will cool for hours. I started preparing right after sunset. My favorite hideout is the sand den. I found a place with soft sand, dug a depression about 70 centimeters deep and a meter wide. She sealed the walls with her hands. I put a raincoat or any fabric on the bottom. This protected me from the dampness and cold of the ground at night. She was building a canopy from above. The best material is a silver-colored rescue blanket. It reflects the sun's rays. I stretched it on sticks or just threw it on bushes. But the most effective way is to make a double canopy. First, 1 layer, on top of branches or sand, then a second layer. The air gap between them worked like a thermos. One day, I discovered an amazing thing. If you bury yourself in the sand for at least 30 centimeters, the temperature becomes much lower. I experimented. On the surface, the sand was heated to 60 degrees. At a depth of 30 centimeters, only 35. This was my salvation during the hottest hours. But the sand den has dangers. First, it may collapse. I have always reinforced the walls with stones or compacted sand. Secondly, there may be insects or snakes. Before climbing into the ready-made shelter, I carefully checked it with a stick.